I used to think my life was perfect. I had a job I was proud of, a sleek apartment in the city, and most importantly, her. Emily. She was my everything. The first thing I thought of when I woke up, the last thing on my mind before I fell asleep. She was my reason to keep going, even on the hardest days. I remember when we first met. Her laugh, her smile, they were like sunshine breaking through the clouds on a gray day. It felt like I finally found the one person who understood me, who made me feel like I wasn't alone in this world. We used to dream together, talk about the future, about all the things we'd do. There was so much love between us, so much hope. But then, somewhere along the way, things started to change. I didn't notice it at first, not really. At least, not in the way I should have. It was little things at first, her coming home later than usual, the quiet moments when we were in the same room but didn't have much to say. There was a distance growing between us, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, I couldn't. But I didn't want to face it either. I didn't want to believe that something could be wrong. Not with her. One day, she came home later than usual. She was distant, colder than before. I tried talking to her, tried to reach her. But all she did was give me one of those empty smiles and say she was tired. I should have known. I should have realized then that things were falling apart. But I didn't. I just kept pretending everything was fine. Then, one morning, I woke up to silence. The kind of silence that gnaws at you, that feels wrong in every way. She wasn't there. I expected her to be. I thought she'd be in the kitchen, making coffee, laughing about something silly from yesterday. But no. Nothing. Just an empty apartment, an emptiness that settled deep in my chest. I walked around the place like a zombie, hoping maybe she was just in the bathroom or out for a walk. But there was no sign of her. I looked at the kitchen counter, and that's when I saw it. A note. I'm sorry. This isn't easy, but I can't do this anymore. Please understand. That was it. No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone. I stood there, staring at the note, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My head was spinning, and for a second, I thought maybe I had just missed something. Maybe there was a mistake. But no. The truth was right in front of me, in black and white ink. She was gone. And I had no idea why. I don't know how long I stood there. Time seemed to stop. I thought about everything we had shared, all the plans we made. And just like that, it was all shattered. She was gone, and I was left standing in the wreckage of what I thought was a perfect life. The person I had loved with all my heart, the person I had thought would be by my side forever, she walked away without a word, and I was left with nothing but confusion and pain. I didn't know where to go from here. All I knew was that my life, my perfect life, had fallen apart in a way I couldn't understand. It's been weeks since she left, but it still feels like it happened yesterday. Every day is the same. I wake up, get out of bed, go through the motions, but nothing feels real anymore. Emily used to be here, her laughter, her touch, the way she'd always find some way to make me smile even on the worst days. But now, it's just me. And the silence. I can't escape it. Not when I walk through the door and see her empty spot on the couch, or when I open the closet and see the dresses she left behind. They still hang there, untouched, like she might come back at any moment. But she's not coming back. She left me without even saying why, and I'm left to wonder what happened, what went wrong. I'm stuck in this weird loop of disbelief and anger. I keep replaying everything over and over in my head, trying to figure out what I missed, what I could have done differently. But there's nothing. I don't know what happened to the woman I loved, the woman who was my everything. I don't know who she is anymore. I try to distract myself. I throw myself into work, thinking if I just keep busy, maybe I won't feel the pain so much. But it doesn't work. The minute I walk into my office, her face pops into my mind, like a bad dream that I can't shake off. I try to focus on my tasks, but all I can hear in the back of my head is her voice, telling me she's sorry, telling me she couldn't do it anymore. I pick up my phone, scrolling aimlessly through the messages, looking for something that isn't there. There's nothing from her. Not a single message, not a word since she left. I want to reach out, ask her why, demand an explanation, but something holds me back. I guess I'm scared of what I'll hear. That's when I hear the knock on the door. I freeze. My heart starts to race. Could it be her? No. It's been weeks. She wouldn't come back now, not after everything. But the knock comes again, louder this time. I don't know what compels me to open it, but I do. And there she is. Emily. Standing in front of me, her eyes filled with something I can't quite place. Hi, she says, her voice soft, unsure. Can we talk? I feel like the air has been knocked out of me. I stand there, staring at her, unsure of what to say. A part of me wants to slam the door in her face, tell her to leave and never come back. But another part of me, some stupid, naive part of me, wants to hear what she has to say. I step aside, letting her in. She hesitates, like she's not sure she's welcome. I can't blame her. I don't know if she's welcome here either. Why are you here? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. It's a question I've been asking myself for weeks. Why show up now? After everything? After walking away without even a real goodbye? I don't know, she says, her voice breaking. I didn't mean for it to be like this. I didn't want to hurt you. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to scream, tell her to stop, but I couldn't. I just stood there, feeling numb. I wanted to demand answers, to ask why she did this to me, why she left me without a second thought. But instead, I just said, you left. You didn't even tell me why. I don't understand. I was scared, she says, her voice cracking now. Scared of what we were becoming. Scared that we were losing ourselves in each other. I didn't know how to handle it, so I ran. I was a coward. A coward. The word echoes in my mind, and for a moment, I feel a flicker of something, anger, maybe. Maybe even resentment. She was scared? She ran? She left me without a word, without a trace, and now she's standing here, asking for my forgiveness? I don't know what to say. Part of me wants to shout, tell her how much she's hurt me. Tell her how everything in my life has fallen apart since she left. But I don't. I just stand there, staring at her, feeling the weight of all the emotions I've been trying to bury. I don't know if I can forgive you, I say finally, the words coming out hoarse. You hurt me, Emily. You left me without a reason. I don't know if I can just forget about that. I know, she says quietly. I don't expect you to. But I needed to apologize. I needed to let you know how sorry I am. I want to believe her. I want to believe that she's really sorry, that she's not just here to ease her own guilt. But it's hard. It's hard to look at her and remember the woman who left me without a second thought. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I don't know if I'm ready to let her back in, or if I should just walk away. But one thing is clear, whatever happens next, my life will never be the same again. I invited Emily inside, but I quickly regretted it. The words she spoke, those simple, careless words, tore through me like a jagged knife. I was scared, she had said. But that didn't explain everything, did it? I could feel something was missing, something she wasn't telling me. I asked her to sit, though I could hardly look her in the eye. I wanted to say so many things, but I was paralyzed by the hurt. I could barely even comprehend what she was saying anymore. She kept apologizing, kept telling me how much she regretted what she'd done. But the truth hung in the air like a cloud, heavy and suffocating. It was all too clear to me now. I didn't just leave because I was scared, she whispered, her voice trembling. I was seeing someone else. I froze. The words hit me like a slap, cold and brutal. The room felt like it was spinning. She was seeing someone else? My stomach lurched, and I fought to keep my composure. But the pain, hey God, the pain was unbearable. I felt like I had been punched in the gut, like all the air had been knocked out of me. You were seeing someone else? I choked out, unable to stop the wave of anger and betrayal that surged through me. All this time, you were with someone else? Emily's eyes welled up with tears, and she nodded, looking down at her hands. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile. But that didn't matter to me right now. Nothing mattered except the fact that she had replaced me. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, had thrown me away like I didn't even matter. Why didn't you just tell me? I spat, my voice shaking with fury. Why didn't you just say something? Why leave me in the dark like that? I didn't know how, she whispered. I didn't know how to face you, to admit what I had done. I thought it would be easier this way, for both of us. Easier? I laughed bitterly, though there was no humor in it. How is this easier, Emily? You left me without a word, without any explanation. And now you tell me that you were with someone else the whole time? That you didn't think enough of me to even let me know the truth? I'm so sorry, she repeated, her voice breaking. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought maybe you'd never have to know. I never wanted to destroy what we had. Destroy? I echoed, the word a bitter taste in my mouth. You didn't just destroy it, Emily. You ripped it apart. You took everything we had and just tossed it aside. For what? For someone else? She shook her head, looking at me with pleading eyes. It wasn't like that. It wasn't about him. It was about me. I felt like I was losing myself. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone who wasn't good for you. And when he came into the picture, I thought maybe that was my chance to escape, to find myself again. I didn't mean for it to go this far. My mind was racing. I couldn't process this. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted more than anyone else in this world, had cheated on me. And now she was standing here, trying to justify it, trying to explain her way out of it. The truth hit me hard, she wasn't the person I thought she was. I didn't know who she was anymore. Do you love him? I asked, my voice barely audible, almost afraid to hear the answer. There was a long pause. She didn't meet my gaze. She just stared at the floor, her hands twisting in her lap. Then, quietly, almost as if she was speaking to herself, she said, No. I don't. But it didn't matter. I just needed a way out, and he was there. The honesty in her words stung even more than her betrayal. She didn't love him. She never did. But it didn't matter. She'd still chosen him over me, still let him in when I wasn't enough. I felt the anger rise again, hot and bitter in my chest. You think I can just forgive you for this? I shot back. You think I can just forget that you replaced me with someone else, that you abandoned me and lied to me? You don't just get to walk back into my life and pretend none of this happened, Emily. You don't get to come here and tell me you're sorry and expect me to just move on. I know, she whispered, her face crumpling with regret. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve anything. But I had to come back. I had to tell you the truth, even if it meant losing you forever. I stood there, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell at her, to make her feel the same hurt she had caused me. But what would that accomplish? What good would it do to tear her apart the way she had torn me apart? I don't know what you expect from me, I said, my voice low and cold. But I can't forgive you. Not right now. Maybe not ever. Her face fell, but she didn't argue. She just nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. I understand, she said softly. I just needed you to know. I needed you to know the truth. And with that, she left. Again. Only this time, I knew there was no coming back. No fixing this. As I stood there, alone in the apartment we had once shared, I realized something. She wasn't the only one who had been lost. I had been lost, too. And now, I had to find my way back. The next few days were a blur. Emily's confession haunted me, her tearful eyes and the fragile words of apology echoing in my head. But one thing stood out above all else: betrayal. She had taken everything we built together and thrown it away like it was nothing. She was with someone else, and she thought she could just waltz back into my life after all of that. I couldn't let her get away with it. Not after everything. I started to think about revenge. The idea took root in my mind like a poison, feeding on the anger and humiliation she had left me with. I wanted her to suffer. I wanted her to feel the same heartbreak, the same confusion, the same empty hole she had left in me. Maybe that would make me feel better, maybe that would give me the closure I so desperately craved. I began to plot, carefully. It wasn't going to be anything obvious, nothing as crude as confronting her again. No, I was going to make her regret everything. I would make her pay, but in a way that would hit her hardest, by taking away the one thing she cared about most, me. I started small. I ignored her calls, letting them go straight to voicemail. Each time, I could hear her desperation in the messages she left. She begged for a chance to talk, to explain herself, to beg for forgiveness. But I wasn't ready to forgive her. Not yet. Every time she called, I let it ring, feeling a sick sense of satisfaction as I listened to the beeping of the voicemail. I didn't want to get caught up in her manipulation, her desperate attempts to crawl back into my life. I had to be smarter than that. So, I took my time. I watched from a distance. And as I did, I saw how much her life was falling apart without me. She was spiraling. The man she had left me for wasn't treating her the way I had. She was starting to regret her decision. I hated that I could feel satisfaction in that. But I couldn't stop myself. I wanted to watch her squirm. I wanted to see her world crumble. But it wasn't just about her. It was about me, too. About reclaiming the power she had stolen from me, about getting back what I had lost. Days passed, and I kept my distance, even though every part of me wanted to reach out and lash out at her. I could see her slowly unraveling, and a part of me was almost grateful for it. She deserved this, didn't she? She needed to learn that actions have consequences. But then one night, I got a message from her, and this time, it was different. I don't know what I expected, she wrote. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I don't know how to fix this, but I wish I could. I never wanted to hurt you. I stared at the message for a long time. It was the same apology, the same words I had heard 1,000 times already, but now they felt empty. She was hurting, I could tell, but I didn't feel sympathy. I didn't feel anything. All I could think about was how much she had taken from me. How much trust and love I had given her, and how she had shattered it with a single decision. I slammed the phone down, the urge to reply almost overwhelming. I wanted to tell her everything I was feeling, every ounce of anger, every drop of resentment. I wanted to make her feel the weight of what she had done. But instead, I did nothing. I just sat there, letting the silence take over. I didn't respond. I knew it was the right thing to do. Let her think about what she had done. Let her stew in her own guilt. That was the hardest part of revenge, I realized, letting her sit in her regret without giving her any closure. But I couldn't stay in this state forever. The pain was eating me alive. So, I decided to go out, to do something, anything to distract myself from the mess I had become. I met a friend for drinks, tried to pretend like I wasn't a man broken inside. The alcohol helped, at least for a little while. It gave me the courage to smile, to laugh, to pretend like everything was okay. And then I saw her. It wasn't a planned encounter. I hadn't expected to run into her at that bar, of all places. But there she was, standing near the entrance, looking lost and out of place. I could see the shadows under her eyes, the exhaustion in her posture. She was still trying to act like everything was fine, but I could tell it wasn't. She saw me, too. Her eyes widened, and for a moment, it felt like time stood still. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know what to do. My first instinct was to turn around, walk away, but I couldn't. Something about seeing her here, like this, made all the anger flood back. She looked like a shell of the woman I had loved, and I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of victory. She approached me slowly, hesitating. "I didn't expect to see you here," she said, her voice shaky. I thought we'd never see each other again. I didn't know what to say to her. Part of me wanted to yell, to throw every insult I could think of at her. But I just stared at her, taking in the sad, broken version of Emily that stood in front of me. "I'm not here for a pity party, Emily," I said coldly, my voice steady. "I'm not here for you to feel sorry for yourself." Her face fell, the tears welling up in her eyes. "I didn't want it to be like this. I never meant to hurt you." And that was it. The words were the same as always, and yet they stung more than they ever had before. I could see the regret, the pain, the guilt written all over her face. But it wasn't enough anymore. She didn't deserve my forgiveness. She didn't deserve any more of my time. "Then why didn't you just tell me the truth?" I asked quietly. "Why did you have to make it all a lie?" She didn't have an answer. She just stood there, crying silently, and I knew then, revenge wasn't about making her feel what I felt. It wasn't about watching her suffer. It was about moving on. Letting go of the past and taking back control of my life. The pain would fade, and with time, so would the anger. And that was the only revenge I needed. The days after seeing Emily again were a whirlwind of confusion. I tried to shake off the encounter, but it lingered in my mind like a constant hum. It wasn't even about her anymore, it was about how I felt. The anger, the betrayal, the deep ache in my chest. It was all still there. But I also felt something else, something I hadn't expected, relief. I had come face to face with the person who had broken me, and I didn't collapse. I didn't beg her to come back. I didn't cry. I just stood there, indifferent, and let her feel the weight of her choices. I had taken back control, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. But even as I moved on, something was happening on her end. Slowly, I started hearing whispers about Emily's new life. People I knew, mutual friends, began telling me things I didn't want to know but couldn't ignore. They spoke about how things weren't going well for her. Her new relationship, the one she had thrown me away for, was falling apart. Fast. At first, I told myself I didn't care. That's what I kept telling myself every time I heard something new. Her problems weren't my problem anymore. She had made her choice. She had left me for someone else, and now she was paying the price. But the truth was, it was hard to ignore. It was hard not to feel estranged, bitter satisfaction every time someone told me how her world was crumbling. I didn't know why I cared. After everything she'd done, after how she'd tossed me aside like I meant nothing, why should I feel anything for her now? But the more I heard, the more I started to wonder if karma was at work. It was almost poetic. She had cheated on me, broken my heart, and now she was getting a taste of her own medicine. The first piece of gossip came from my coworker, Laura. She was always one to keep me in the loop about the latest drama. You know, she said one afternoon, I heard that Emily and her new guy are having serious issues. Apparently, he's been seeing other people. He's not what she thought he was. She's miserable. I didn't want to care. I didn't want to feel satisfaction or relief or any of that. But the truth hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't the one who got away after all. It was her, not me, who had been left broken and betrayed. It didn't stop there. The stories kept coming. Emily had started to drink more, apparently, and her social media posts, once full of smiles and happy moments, had become more about her regrets. She looked tired, worn out, like a woman who had lost herself. And still, I told myself it didn't matter. I had been through the worst of it. I had suffered the pain of her betrayal, the shame of being replaced, but I had also survived. I had rebuilt myself. I didn't need her to feel the same hurt I had. I didn't need her karma. But the truth was, watching her fall apart made me feel something. It wasn't joy. It wasn't satisfaction. It wasn't even revenge, if I was being honest with myself. It was just emptiness. She was losing the person she had chosen over me, and it was clear that she had thought this new guy was going to be the one to make her happy. Instead, she was stuck in the same place I had been, confused, hurt, and alone. A part of me felt sorry for her. I didn't want to be this cold, calculating person who found joy in another's misery. But the other part of me, the angry, broken part, felt vindicated. She deserved this. She deserved to see what it was like to feel discarded, unwanted, and alone. And yet, deep down, I couldn't help but wonder, what did this all mean for me? Watching her fall apart, seeing her regret the very choices that had destroyed us, was that what I wanted? Was that how I would find peace? Was that what revenge was? Watching her fail? Watching her spiral? One night, as I sat alone in my apartment, the weight of it all started to sink in. I realized something. I didn't need her to hurt. I didn't need her karma to make me feel better. I needed to heal. I needed to stop obsessing over her life, over what she was doing and how she was suffering. I thought back to everything she had done, how she had left me for someone else, how she had broken my heart without a second thought. She didn't owe me an apology anymore. She didn't need to suffer for me to find peace. What I needed to do was let go of the anger. Let go of the resentment. Karma, I realized, wasn't just about what happened to her. It wasn't about the universe's idea of balance. Karma was about me. The way I chose to heal. The way I chose to let go of the past and start fresh. And just like that, the anger that had consumed me for so long started to fade. I didn't want to keep chasing her downfall. I didn't want to keep reliving my pain through her. It was time for me to move on. So, I made a decision. I deleted her number. I unfollowed her on social media. I stopped listening to the gossip. And for the first time in months, I felt lighter. Maybe karma wasn't about watching her suffer. Maybe it was just about learning to forgive and moving on from the past. I couldn't keep living in the shadows of what Emily had done to me. I had my own life to live. And that's when I knew this was my turning point. No more bitterness. No more revenge. Only peace. It's strange how you can be moving forward and still feel like you're standing still. For weeks, I focused on getting through the days, going to work, pretending like I had it all together. On the surface, everything seemed normal. I wasn't crying over Emily anymore. I wasn't angry. But underneath it all, there was a nagging feeling that I couldn't shake. I hadn't forgiven her, not really. Sure, I had accepted the situation for what it was. But deep down, I still hadn't dealt with the hurt, the betrayal. And that was the problem. I had spent so much time focusing on Emily, on her karma, on her downfall, that I had forgotten about the most important thing, the need to forgive myself. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror, running my fingers through my hair, tired of the way I looked. Tired of the way I felt. It wasn't just the physical exhaustion, it was the emotional weight I was carrying, the burden of everything that had happened between Emily and me. I stared at my reflection, looking at a man I didn't recognize. The face was familiar, but the person behind it, he felt like a stranger. How had I let myself get to this point? Why had I let Emily's betrayal define me for so long? Why was I still holding on to the anger? I took a deep breath, my hands resting on the bathroom counter, and for the first time in months, I asked myself something I had been avoiding: who am I now? Who had I become in the wake of all this pain? I wasn't the man I had been when Emily and I were happy. That version of me was carefree, full of hope and optimism. Now, I was hardened, bitter, wrapped up in the past. I didn't want to be that person anymore. I didn't want to be the man who held on to a grudge, who let someone else's actions dictate his happiness. I couldn't keep living like this, holding on to resentment, waiting for her to feel the same way. I was only hurting myself. And I knew it had to stop. The answer was simple, but it was hard. I had to forgive her. Not for her sake, but for mine. Forgiveness wasn't about excusing what she had done or pretending it didn't hurt. It was about letting go of the anger and the pain that were poisoning me. It was about reclaiming the part of myself I had lost in this mess. But that was the hardest thing I'd ever had to do. I didn't want to let her back into my life, not in the way she had been before. I didn't want to be her friend or pick up where we left off. That ship had sailed. But I had to forgive her. I had to let go of the need for her to suffer, because I was the one who was still hurting. The next few days were a blur. I went to work, ate dinner, did all the things I needed to do to get through the motions of life. But all the while, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing inside of me. I felt lighter. Less burdened. Slowly, I realized that I wasn't just forgiving Emily, I was forgiving myself. I had blamed myself for everything. I had questioned if I wasn't enough, if I had done something wrong to push her away. But the truth was Emily made her choices. I couldn't control what she did. What I could control was how I responded. And I was tired of letting her actions dictate my emotions. One night, I sat on the couch with a glass of whiskey, the city lights twinkling outside the window. I had just finished reading a book, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just here. And that was enough. I reached for my phone, my fingers hovering over Emily's name. I hadn't blocked her number, hadn't erased the messages she had sent me. Part of me wondered if I should reach out, if I should tell her what I had learned in all this. But as I thought about it, I realized I didn't need to. I didn't need to confront her or make her feel the weight of her choices. I had already let go. Instead, I typed out a message to myself. A reminder. You are not defined by what happened. You are not defined by her choices. You are enough. I didn't send it to anyone. It wasn't for anyone but me. I didn't need closure from Emily anymore. I didn't need anything from her. The only closure I needed was from myself. And just like that, the anger, the bitterness, it began to fade. It wasn't instant and it wasn't perfect. But every day, I felt a little bit lighter. Every day, I moved a little bit closer to the person I wanted to be. I stood in front of the mirror again, this time with a different kind of clarity. The reflection staring back at me wasn't the broken man I had been before. It wasn't the angry, resentful version of myself. This man had learned to forgive. This man was learning to live again. And that was enough. I didn't need Emily. I didn't need anyone to make me feel whole. I had done that myself. It had been months since I last saw Emily. Months since that moment at the bar when she stood in front of me, desperate, apologetic, her face a mask of regret. I had thought that would be the last time. I had thought I was done with her, that I had finally let go of the past. But life, as always, had other plans. I woke up to a text one morning, her name lighting up my phone screen. My heart didn't race like it used to when I saw her name. I wasn't filled with anger, confusion, or even hope. Just a strange emptiness. But I couldn't ignore it. Not after everything. "Can we talk?" That was all it said. No apologies. No explanation. Just those 4 words. I stared at the message for what felt like forever, weighing my options. The old me, the man who was still angry and broken, the man who wanted to make her feel every bit of the hurt she caused, would have snapped back, told her to leave me alone. But that man was gone. He had to be. I had forgiven her. I had moved on. Or, at least, I thought I had. But as I read her message again, I realized something I hadn't fully accepted until now. I wasn't done with her. Not completely. No matter how hard I had tried, no matter how many times I told myself I was over it, there was still a piece of me that was tied to her. It was a part of me I wasn't proud of, but it was there. I didn't want to respond. I didn't want to drag myself back into this mess. But I couldn't help myself. I had to know what she wanted. "Where are you?" I typed back. A simple question. I didn't need an explanation. I wasn't ready for one. I just needed to know where to meet her. To end this once and for all, if that's what it took. A few minutes later, she replied. "Same place as last time. The bar." I put my phone down and rubbed my face, feeling the weight of what was about to happen. A part of me was scared. Scared of falling back into old patterns. Scared of letting her back in, even for just a moment. But I couldn't ignore the feeling that I had to go. That I needed closure. I arrived at the bar a little early, the familiar ding of the doorbell echoing as I walked in. I sat at a corner booth, staring at the empty seat across from me, the one where Emily had sat all those months ago. The place hadn't changed. But I had. A few minutes passed before I saw her. She walked in slowly, her eyes scanning the room before they landed on me. I watched her take a deep breath, like she was preparing for something, unsure of how to approach. Her face was still the same, but there was a noticeable difference. She looked tired. Not just physically, but emotionally. She made her way to the booth, her steps hesitant, and slid into the seat across from me. "Hi," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The same voice that had once held so much warmth. Now, it was fragile, almost broken. "Hi," I replied, my own voice distant, even though I didn't mean for it to be. "What's this about, Emily? What do you want from me?" Her eyes flickered with something, guilt, maybe. Regret, definitely. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she began, her hands fidgeting in her lap. "I don't expect anything from you. I needed to see you. I needed to talk." I leaned back in my seat, my arms crossed. I could feel my walls starting to go up again, but I kept them in check. I had worked so hard to get here, to get to a place where I didn't need her validation, where I wasn't consumed by the past. "What is it, Emily?" I asked again, my voice colder than I meant it to be. "What do you need to say?" She swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on her hands. "I've been a mess. I know. I shouldn't have come here. I shouldn't be asking this from you, but I'm sorry. I've never been more sorry in my life." I stayed silent, not wanting to interrupt her, but not sure if I wanted to hear what came next. "I was selfish," she continued, her voice cracking slightly. "I left because I was scared, yes. But I also left because I was afraid of feeling trapped, of feeling like I couldn't breathe. I wasn't happy with myself. And that's why I destroyed everything. Because I thought I was running toward something better, something that would make me feel whole. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. I felt the old wounds begin to resurface. The anger that had been smothered under layers of time and healing started to poke its head out. She was still the same. She was still making excuses. I opened my mouth to speak, but she stopped me before I could say anything. "I know," she said quickly. "I know I don't have the right to ask for anything. But I need to know. I need to know if there's any part of you that can forgive me. Even just a little. I can't keep living with this regret." The room felt heavy. The air between us was thick with the weight of her words. She was asking for forgiveness. She was asking me to let her back into my life. But after everything she had done, I didn't know if I could. "I've forgiven you," I said, the words surprising even me. It was the truth, though. I had let go of the bitterness, the anger. But that didn't mean I was ready to open myself up to her again. "But forgiveness doesn't mean I want you back in my life." Her face fell, but she nodded, understanding the finality in my voice. She didn't argue, didn't try to change my mind. She just sat there, quietly, as if waiting for me to say more. But I had nothing else to say. I wasn't the man I had been when she first left me. I had grown. I had healed. And I didn't need her anymore. Emily stood up slowly, her shoulders slumped. I wanted to say that. I wanted you to know." I nodded, and for the first time in a long time, I felt peace. She had come back to ask for forgiveness, but I had already forgiven her. And that was enough. I didn't need her anymore. Not in my life. Not in my heart. She walked away, and I didn't follow. I just stayed where I was, knowing that I had finally closed that chapter. And with it, I was free. The next few days felt different. It wasn't that something had suddenly changed, it was more like I was seeing everything through a new lens. I had seen Emily again, and I had made my decision. I'd told her that I forgave her, but that forgiveness didn't mean we were going to pick up where we left off. It didn't mean I was going to let her waltz back into my life and disrupt the fragile peace I had worked so hard to build. But despite that, I still felt unsettled. Like there was something unresolved, something I had missed. I spent most of the following days just being. I didn't rush into anything. I didn't try to force myself to feel something I wasn't ready to feel. I just gave myself the space to breathe. That's when it hit me, I had a choice. I could keep moving forward, leaving the past behind me, never looking back at the wreckage Emily had caused. I could continue living my life, focused on myself, on the person I was becoming, and not let her shadow hang over me anymore. It sounded simple enough, but it wasn't. The past few months had been about survival. But now, I was standing at a crossroads. And I had to make a decision. Was I ready to completely let go? Was I ready to choose peace over anger, healing over regret? I knew I had come a long way. I wasn't the same man I was when Emily first walked out on me. I had healed, found strength in myself that I didn't even know was there. I had forgiven her, not for her sake, but for mine. I had done the work to move forward. But forgiveness and moving on weren't the same thing. I wasn't sure if I was completely free from the chains of the past. I took a long walk through the park one evening, the sky painted with shades of orange and pink as the sun dipped below the horizon. It was the kind of evening that made everything feel quiet, peaceful, like I could just let go of everything and allow myself to just be. As I walked, my mind kept drifting back to that moment in the bar. I remembered the look in Emily's eyes, the vulnerability, the regret, and I felt something stir in me. Something that wasn't just anger or resentment. Something softer. It was the strangest feeling, because I hadn't expected it. But there it was. A small voice inside me whispering that maybe I wasn't entirely done with her after all. I stopped by a bench and sat down, taking a deep breath. My phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking my train of thought. I pulled it out, expecting another work message or something trivial. But it wasn't. It was from her. I know it's a lot to ask, but can we talk again? Please. I just need one more chance to explain. I can't move forward without knowing if you can forgive me fully. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to block her again and never look back. I had already told her everything I needed to say. I had made it clear that she wasn't welcome in my life the way she used to be. But then, the other part of me, the part I'd been avoiding, the part that still felt a connection to her, wanted to give her that chance. She was asking for it, after all. She was still holding on to something. Could I, after everything, still give her that? Was it worth it? I put the phone down, leaning back against the bench, closing my eyes. I had come so far, but now it felt like I was about to turn around and head straight back into the storm. Was I prepared to open that door again? Could I really trust her, trust myself, to not fall back into the same patterns? I had been angry, yes. But I wasn't anymore. I had made peace with the fact that she had hurt me, that she had betrayed me. I had learned to forgive, not because she deserved it, but because I needed to let go of the weight I was carrying. But forgiving someone didn't mean you invited them back into your life. Forgiveness was about finding peace, not necessarily rekindling a relationship. And yet, here I was, faced with the choice of whether to let her back in, even if only for a conversation. I thought about the person I had become. I had built myself back up, piece by piece. I had found strength in myself that I never thought I had. I had started to trust again, not in others, but in myself. I had made it through the worst of it without falling apart. Could I really risk that again? I looked down at my phone, my fingers trembling slightly as I typed a response. It wasn't what I expected myself to say, but somehow, it felt right. We can talk. But this is the last time. I hit send, and a weight lifted off my chest. It wasn't a decision I was making lightly, but I knew deep down that this was the right choice for me. I didn't want to live in a constant state of what if. I didn't want to carry the burden of wondering whether I could have given her that one last chance to explain herself. I had already moved on, but maybe, just maybe, this conversation would give me the closure I needed. Maybe this time, I could hear her out, truly hear her, without all the anger and resentment clouding my judgment. Maybe this time, I could let go for good. The choice was mine to make. And in that moment, I knew it wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. About choosing my peace. My future. When I looked up, the sun had set completely, and the stars were beginning to twinkle overhead. I wasn't sure where this decision would take me, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was heading in the right direction. The conversation with Emily came and went like a storm, intense and brief. I had agreed to meet her one last time, and when I walked into the cafe, there she was, waiting for me. Her face was worn, eyes tired, as though the weight of the world was on her shoulders. We didn't say much at first. She started with an apology, her voice shaky, but I didn't need it anymore. I had already forgiven her. She seemed almost surprised when I told her that. We talked, mostly about things we'd both already said before. She told me about the mistakes she'd made, how she realized that leaving me for someone else wasn't the answer. But nothing she said changed anything. The person who had hurt me was still the same person sitting across from me now. But here's the thing, I wasn't the same person. I wasn't the man who had cried myself to sleep every night after she left. I wasn't the angry, broken man who spent weeks in darkness, wondering where I went wrong. I was someone else now. Someone stronger. Someone who had rebuilt himself from the rubble of that past. And as I listened to her talk, I realized something important. This conversation, this last attempt at closure, it wasn't for her. It was for me. I didn't need her to apologize. I didn't need her to explain herself. What I needed was to walk away from the past and never look back. So when the conversation ended, and we said our goodbyes, I didn't feel angry or sad. I just felt at peace. I walked out of that cafe feeling lighter than I had in months. I had finally closed the door on everything that had been holding me back. Emily's chapter in my life was over, and it was time for me to move on. And that's exactly what I did. I threw myself into work, into friendships, into the things that made me happy. I didn't look back. I didn't regret a single thing. Because in the end, it wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. It was about choosing my happiness, my peace. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was finally free. The days that followed felt like a new beginning. I hadn't realized how much weight I had been carrying until it was gone. Emily was a part of my past now, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could breathe without the suffocating pain of our history hanging over me. I had spent so much time obsessing over what happened, why she left, why I wasn't enough, why everything fell apart. I had spent months in the dark, trying to piece together a version of events that made sense, trying to find closure. But in the end, I realized that closure didn't come from understanding her reasons. It came from understanding myself. I didn't need to keep reliving the hurt. I didn't need to keep holding on to something that was never meant to be. I had done the hard work, healing, forgiving, and moving on. And I finally felt like I was ready to start something new. I took a day off work one weekend, and I just went for a walk. I didn't have any particular destination in mind. I just needed space, time to think. The city was bustling around me, people going about their lives, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel like I was stuck. I wasn't waiting for something to change. I wasn't waiting for her to come back or to make things right. I was just living. As I walked, I thought about the man I had become. The man who had survived heartbreak, who had picked up the pieces of his life and rebuilt them. I was no longer the person I used to be. The angry, betrayed version of myself had faded away, replaced by someone who knew how to stand tall, someone who understood that his worth wasn't defined by someone else's actions. I stopped at a bench by the water and sat down, watching the ripples in the water. I felt calm, at peace. This was it. This was the moment where everything I had worked for, everything I had endured, finally made sense. I had found closure, not because Emily had apologized or explained herself, but because I had let go of the past. I had chosen to move forward, and now I could truly leave it behind. The truth was simple: life goes on. People leave. Things change. And in the end, it's up to us to decide whether we let the past control us or if we take control of our own future. And I was choosing my future. No more regrets. No more looking back. Only forward. As I stood up and walked away, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time in a long while, I was truly free.